All right. Hello, Steve. Good morning. It's great to be with you on another talk today.
Yeah, good morning, my friend. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Of course, of course. So I think today we're going to talk about something, I don't know, maybe it could even be slightly controversial, but just the idea that everything is working out the way it's supposed to for all of us. And I think I'll just leave it there. So it's an idea that came up in our discussion. So tell me your thoughts on this generally.
Yeah, it's really a great topic. And I have to tell you, it continues to take, for me, years to mature into that possibility that everything is always working out for me. And I think if folks were to consider an event in their life that seemed to be the most catastrophic event, the most disappointing event, and I understand that that event was unsettling, it was painful, it may have even been a real setback. However, surviving that event may have turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to you.
Yeah.
My experience here many years later is that everything always works out for me. And when I can align my thinking or I can align my energy, candidly, it's energy and frequency.
Yeah.
When I can align my energy and frequency with the energy and frequency of the universe unfolding, then the struggle starts to diminish a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I think when you brought this topic up, the first thing I thought of was that, our just from a biological level, our minds are very much meaning making machines, right? So, I mean, what that part of our physiology is doing is making sense out of what's happening around us. So I ran into this personally where I thought, wow, I thought this event in my life was going to be so terrible that it would just ruin my life afterwards. And, once I got past that, it actually, I'm so grateful that it happened the way that it did, right? That failure or that relationship ending, et cetera, and I think those things, my mind has really made it into this great learning experience to where I'm able to better exist today.
Yeah,
Yes.
100%, 100%. If we're alive today, taking breath today,
Yeah.
there's proof that we have survived 100% of our worst days.
Yeah.
Just no doubt. So there's the immediate evidence of that. And you're absolutely correct. Our minds are analytical in nature and they're problem solving. So
Yeah.
many times when I get myself into a situation that I'm uncomfortable with, immediately the energy flies up into my mind. And it flies up into my mind to try to become a fixer. So that's really kind of the nature, if you will, of this coaching industry, this self-help industry, that we need to be fixed. And so what happens is, myself included, is people go out and try to find solutions to fix things. And as long as we're in this position of trying to fix things, we're in our analytical mind.
Yeah.
But if in a moment we can surrender to what's happening, it doesn't mean that when I say surrender, it doesn't mean that we're giving up. It means that we're trying to bypass the analytical mind and experience the event without trying to suppress it.
Yeah.
And in doing that, the event will teach us and it may pass more easily.
Yeah, it's so much stuff comes to mind as you're talking. And the first thing is that I remember this was recently, this was in the last 5 years, I would say. There's a song lyric that I remember. It didn't seem necessarily profound. However, it really, was one of those, when I heard it, the hair stood up on the back of my neck, and it was, how many roads must we take until we know that we already have everything we need? And I was like, what is it about that was so profound? And I think that, and I've learned this in coaching too, in being coached in coaching, is that a lot of times people will come to you with a solution, and really what the solution is that, you're already in the solution. You just have to kind of realize it. You're in the space, right? And that might sound like I'm talking about some kind of wild voodoo magic. But when you realize, when you actually are sitting in that and you're like, oh, wait, and you're embodying your life and you're present in that moment and you feel empowered to go which direction you want to choose, that's the real solution, right? That's what the coaching self-help industry, I think those practitioners who are really helping people, they work from that premise. What would you say to that?
Yeah, 100%. We as human beings, we arrive in this incarnation as the highest vibrating beings on the planet. And the thing that differentiates us is, our mind, our brain, our nervous system, these kind of energetic pathways. Now, that's a topic in and of itself, but what happens is this, I'll call it intuition, and I think people, there's a tendency to get hung up on what to call it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll refer to it right now just as intuition. It could be referred to as source or the universe or whatever you want to call it. But what happens is that intuitive way of being becomes suppressed by layers and layers and layers and layers of beliefs and thinking and mindset. Yeah. So it's almost as if we become explorers, we become miners, and we have to remove those things that are in the way of this really innate energy that will then provide what we're looking for.
Well, that's a great analogy. And it really is, because it hits to the point. That's exactly what I was saying, a lot of times. And, I remember one time I was being coached on, I was like, I want to be more productive. And it's like, and I was like, well, what's the problem with productivity now? And it's like, well, I can't get through this task to get to this task. And the question was, well, if you're being productive, then why does it matter what task you're working on? And I remember thinking, that's a stupid question, but something stuck on it there. And it was like, that's what it was. I was that question, right, caused me to realize I was really just, what I needed to do was excavate, right, to get back to that innate intuition that you talked about. And that was just, this quest for productivity or whatever was just one means to access that realization. So,
100%. And it's interesting, this idea of productivity.
Yeah.
We become productive because we are productive. So what happens is folks look to productivity as a measurement of their worth. I look to productivity as a measurement of my worth.
Yeah.
And really what happens is we are creators. That's what aligns us with the energy of the universe. I'll use the universe right now. So the universe is always creating.
Yeah.
Have you seen those recent photographs from the James Webb Telescope?
I have, yes.
Okay, so just mind blowing.
Yeah.
There are stars being created.
Yeah.
So what happens, that energy that's creating stars, the less obstructed we are, the energy comes down and flows out. So we create. So it's creation that we're producing. We're not being productive. Yeah. Follow? But yeah. That's a long, let me tell you, that's a long jump, man.
Well, it is, but also, as you were talking, the idea came up is like, well, what causes us to be obstructive and really, or obstructed, excuse me. And really, I think the answer to that question is that we're holding on to it. Because another thing that I realized is that how many things I'm holding on to, even to the point, like if you're holding on to the past, then there's only so much bandwidth that we have as an entity. You're not allowing the future to come in, right? Yeah. And even to the point where I was realizing that if I looked at it like an 80-20, right? So 20% of what I was doing was causing 80% of the benefit or whatnot, that more of the other 80% that I let go of was going to enhance the 80% that I was actually affecting what I wanted to affect, right? So I'm holding on to this productivity when only 20% of it's getting the benefit of it. And there's a certain freedom, there's a certain, aha moment that comes when you start realizing this stuff, that literally, like what you said, that this creative power of the universe is obstructed by us, holding on to everything.
Yeah, 100%, man. And that's really the answer. That's really, the whole thing can be boiled down to letting go.
Yeah.
And go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm just going to say, it just occurs to me to round out this whole thing. Things really, the topic of our conversation today was like, things always work themselves out, right? And so we've arrived at a point now where we're like, okay, if you just let go, right, and just allow the kind of creative energy of the universe to just manifest in your life, right? That sounds kind of woo-woo, but you just let it happen naturally, right? That's another way to say it. You just you let go of all these things that you're holding on to that drag you down and block you up from this energy flowing through you, and voila, all of a sudden your life starts arising in a way that it seems like it's always meant to be.
100%, man. That's it. It's just like we just keep unloading the baggage, and the lighter we become, and that's how it works. But that's how I think it works. That's what I've been taught.
Yeah. I mean, that's, it's funny because that's what I think that I've learned in certain ways, and it didn't make sense to me, but I've certainly had that experience before of, wow, now that I let this go, something new comes into my life. But I think that's really that creative energy that you're talking about that ends up, sort of showing up or manifesting in a way that really makes it feel like, oh, everything's happening the way it should have been.
Yeah, 100%. It's, the lion doesn't argue with being a lion.
No.
It's how do we let go is really, and then of course we get into the lessons of attachment and identity and things of that nature. We as humans, because we are generally uncomfortable, are attached to our thinking and our attitude and our behavior because they are coping mechanisms that provide us with some degree of comfort.
Sure.
And if I were to let go of that, what would I become?
Yeah.
So that's when it really gets down to, doing the work, really looking at these pre-installed programs, looking at these coping mechanisms, and understanding that in fact our whole personality has been a coping mechanism.
Yeah. And I remember at a certain point in my life thinking, if I don't have this pain and like these kind of scars that I've identified myself with, then I'm not me. So why would I let them go? And I remember intellectually realizing how silly that was, right? But also too, kind of feeling stumped, like I can't let it go. Then I just become what? No one? Like, and I think, the answer to that, you ultimately have to discover yourself. But I think to me, being able to let go of that stuff and no longer identify with it, like you said, like attachment, it was ultimately and is a process that's allowing me to experience more freedom than I ever have.
Well, you said it exactly. It's freedom.
Yeah.
Every belief. So, you and I both in the coaching space and in this self-help space, everyone, and rightfully so, is talking about limiting beliefs. Mm-hmm. And I understand that there are beliefs that limit our experience of this unconditional creativity.
Yeah.
But going beyond that, every belief is a limitation. Every belief.
Yeah.
So once we're free of that identity or free of those beliefs, then we're just empowered to express this energy that flows into us and through us, and we just witness the outcome. And thankfully, we live at a time on this planet where we have iconic figures, great spiritual figures who have illustrated what that freedom looks like.
Yeah.
so we can defer to them as, and just real quickly, these particular figures, and everyone has different relationships with them. They're not asking us to follow them, or in my assessment, they're not asking us to follow them, but they're asking us to, how do we align our energy with the energy that they have? How do we emulate what they've done? So like Kobe Bryant set the bar so high, and Kobe's saying, don't be like me, but follow this path, and then you will be like me and better.
Yeah. So there's, instead of focusing on the individual or like their egoic part of their existence, right? You're looking at, what are they doing? Like, what is
absolutely the freedom that they had. So when Buddha, after sitting for 40 days and 40 nights, and Buddha got up and he stood there, he was free. There were no beliefs, there was no thinking, there was no mindset. He became everything all at once. And that's, in the end, that's really what it is this idea of freedom.
Right.
And candidly, every belief that I have, every thought that I have, is just a restriction on our innate nature to be these channels of creativity.
Yeah. Beautiful. I think it all comes down to freedom, and we can allow that for ourselves by letting go. Right. And so everything works out the way it's supposed to. And in order to kind of assist in that process, it's just letting go of all that you can.
Yeah, you're right. And it takes courage, and it takes determination. And you said it beautifully. Well, who will I be without this identity?
Yeah.
Who will I be? And if I believe these iconic liberated figures, I will be more like that.
Yeah.
Which I would prefer.
Sure.
If you can have preferences in this work, I would rather be free than not.
Yeah, and I'll ask, what would it be like if you let go of that preference? I'm just kidding. I didn't.
Absolutely, man.
That's the obvious next step, right?
That's absolutely right. Absolutely right, man.
Well, Steve, I think this is a great place to leave it. I thank you for your time this morning. And again, I love that I never have any idea where our talks are going to go. And this is another example of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for guiding the conversation this morning. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Until next time.
All right. See you soon.
Okay.